Why, I remember we didn't have, there wasn't very many cars at that time. There's very few, and most of them people had pickups. So you'd have to make a lot of your own entertainment. And I remember at Easter time we would fix a lunch, and all the neighborhood kids, and we'd go in the hills. I don't think there's hardly a part of that, the hills around there, those little mountains that we haven't been on and had picnics or climbed. And we'd gather them all up and fix us a lunch, and they'd be Arnetta and Owen and Glenn and I. Darlene at that time was too small, and I can't remember if Emma ever went with us or not. I think she probably didn't, but maybe she did. I can't hardly remember. But we used to have so much fun. And then I remember Dad, we used to have family home evening nearly all winter long, just like they do now. Only we had it so many nights during the week because there wasn't too many shows to go to. We didn't have television. We did have a radio at one time, and we enjoyed that. But Dad was one of the best candy makers that I know of, and he was really he took over a lot of the responsibility for our mother because she had so much to do, and he'd see that there was see that there was a lot of dried fruit and all of that kind of food for us in the winter to eat. And we'd sit around the fire at night, and he'd tell us stories. And I remember how he used to tell us things out of the book, out of the Doctrine and Covenants, that they'd maybe learned in priesthood or that he had read, and in the Book of Mormon. And I used to think, well, I don't think that'll ever come true. And I remember him saying the time had come when we, as kids, when we grew up, that the taxes would be so high it'd almost be impossible for us to pay them. And I thought, well, there'll never be such a thing. And then he'd tell us about how the airplanes would be someday and all those things. And it just seemed unreal to me, but it did happen. And as a family, we always had lots of work to do. There was a lot of us to feed, and we had to help our mother all the time. We was never idle. And then most of the time, we'd go out and have a little job to earn our money, our spending money. And so we learned how to work. And and I am really grateful for that, because that's one of the greatest assets there is in life, to learn how to work. And we had such a good home life that I think about how much we enjoyed our parents. Our mother was so kind to us kids. Dad always done all the disciplining. She never did. Once in a while she'd do a little, but it wasn't very severe. She was just so easygoing with us. And if we'd ask her if we could go somewhere and she didn't want us to go, why, we'd just stand and beg and do everything. And pretty soon she'd say, well, okay, you go, but don't you be gone long. And then we didn't stay. We usually was good to mind her. And she was a great mother. She was so kind and good, and she used to sing to us so much while she's doing her work, and or even just sitting out under the trees in the hot summer. She'd be singing. She had a beautiful voice, And we used to have an organ, and she'd play and we'd sing. And she was a very wonderful mother and a good housekeeper. I have never, in all my time growing up, come home from school to do a batch of dishes. And all my girlfriends, whenever they'd go home from school, they'd always have a batch of dishes to do. And she always kept her house so neat and clean, and her windows. I don't know of anybody that had cleaner windows than our mother did. And I'm grateful for those good parents and for the things they taught me, because I certainly loved them. And I learned to love all my brothers and sisters, and Arnetta and I have been close, even though there's 4 years apart, especially since Arnold passed away. We've had a lot of good times together, and we've been quite a few places, and we like the same things. We like to do the same things, and when we go anywhere, we have so much fun. We really enjoy it. And we talk on the phone, and we get to laughing, and sometimes it's hard to even control our emotions because we laugh so much. And we have, since we got married and left home, we have learned to love and appreciate each other more than we ever did. And that's the way with all the brothers and sisters. We don't see our brothers very much, but we still know that they're down in Hurricane, and that we can go see them when we go down to visit. And it's always nice to go back home. We always call it home, and we go every little chance we get. And
Dad had a dry farm between Hurricane and Short Creek. Arnetta and I would go out with Elvin to plant corn and grain and cook his meals. Our neighbor would invite us over to his place to eat with him. He'd always have corn, and it was sure good. Arnetta and I would stay there. We got homesick, then we would go back to Hurricane in the horse and buggy. Arnetta couldn't remember the horse's name, but it was Satchel, and she was a good old family pet. And Arnetta said it must be she must have been an awful tame horse, and I'm sure it was because I was the driver. Dad was always Dad took pride in his horses. He always had a beautiful team of horses. Beautiful harnesses. They always had them decorated up so nice. In 1940, Wendell and I was working out 5 miles west of St. George on a road job. Arnetta and Wilma and Fenton came out to visit with us, and I had the washing hanging out on the chaparral bushes, and Wilma says, "That's the whitest washing I have ever saw hanging out in the sticks, and the cleanest floor I've ever saw in a house. They stayed out there Wilma and Fenton stayed late in the afternoon, and Arnetta stayed with us and for about a week. And Arnold was out there, and we made her acquainted with him, and that's how she met her husband. Us girls used to, before the boys was old enough to work, we used to have to help in the field. I'd tromp hay. Wilma and Leola would cut and rake hay. And we used to milk cows when the men was hauling hay and have the chores all done when they get home in the evening, tired and give out from working all day. And all they had to do when they come home was take the harnesses off and the horses and turn them in the corral.
While we were growing up in our home, I remember Arnetta best as being a good housekeeper. And she was always neat and clean. And I remember her as best making good cakes and pies. And she'd make such good cakes and pies that she'd have to hide them from me. And I'd a lot of times find her cash. And she was a good worker in the home and outside cleaning the yards. And she was always busy. And she helped Mother a lot in the home. And she was a real good cook. And we used to have a lot of fun together out in the garden working, especially picking the peas in the spring, and then we'd shell the peas and bottle them in one day. And Arnetta we'd talk Arnetta into going to the field with us to haul hay, and we'd haul, our hay was in piles, the old method, and we'd have to load it on the wagon and have a tromper, and we'd talk her into getting up on the load of hay and tromping. And while she was busy tromping around, we'd get a big old pile and throw her right on top of her and bury her. And she'd squeal and holler, and she'd get so mad at us. And she always liked to ride horses, and she'd always ride a horse, saddle horse in the field when we'd be down to work in the hay. We had a little black mare that she was fond of, and she always rode her. And she was a real good cook in the home, and she could do everything there was to do in the home. And I remember in 1940, when her and Arnold was married, Arnold went in service, and she moved down in old Goodlip's little one-room shack. She fixed it all up cute and clean, and she was living there. And I remember one day she had a big pan of oranges sitting on the table, and I grabbed one, and boy, she chased me all over the lot. And she never did catch me, but she was sure mad. And then as time went on, she said that I'll get that back on you. And so I caught her one day in the grape patch. She had a pan of grapes. And so she did pay me back for that orange. And I know when Ronnie arrived, we enjoyed him as a baby, and we really had fun with him while he was growing up. And we had a lot of good times together as a family, and we always would take ARNETTA with us out to the plain. And it was a jovial ride on the wagon, and she never did complain, but it got a little rough for her at times, the hot days and the long ways that we'd travel 15 miles with the wagon, team and wagon, going out to the dry farm. A lot of times we'd go out and get wood, and so we wouldn't have to come back empty, and she'd help us get wood. She was also willing to work.
I remember when we used to have to go out after wood in the fall. We'd make, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 trips every fall. And we'd leave here at 4 o'clock in the morning and go out there and get our wood, go up the old Burma Road. And when we'd get ready to come back, we'd have to cut a great big tree and tie behind the wagon for a brake. Come down that hill, we couldn't depend on the brake to hold us. We'd have to depend on that tree. And we'd get down underneath and we'd have our dinner, feed the horses for a little while, and we'd hook them up and trot them home. We'd get here maybe about 5 o'clock in the evening. And one trip we made, Thatch Ballard was with us, and he'd had an old mattress that he'd put his feet under, have a hot rock, and that hot rock got that mattress on fire. We never had more fun in our life than we did that day, that morning, that mattress was burning. He just dumped, some of it catch a fire and he'd pull it off and throw it off the wagon on the ground. We sure got a bang out of that. And we used to go out, and we'd have to go out on a weekend after school and help with the cows out at the dry farm. ARNETTA would be with us a lot of the time. We'd have to go clear up to Little Creek and haul water in barrels on the old wagon. And that was the only water we had when we had a pond that we depend on. A lot of the time with rains, but a lot of the time we wouldn't have it. We'd have to haul from clear up there to water cattle and horses and things. I remember the kids used to give me such a bad time when I was going to school or coming back from school. ARNETTA would take my place, or Dad. Dad sometimes would have to come and meet me, help fight them off. I remember the little buggy that we used to irrigate with. We'd come from home clear down here. One night, Grandpa came down the water and the lightning, I think, hit the buggy. And I don't remember I don't think it hurt him any. I don't remember much about it. But we was out after wood, and we started in home. Dad and Raymond was on the load of wood, and me and Glendon was in the little buggy, and the line on the right side caught in the hame of the harness, and we was running her, and we couldn't stop her. Glendon, he left the buggy and left me in the buggy alone. When we got down to the wagon, why, they really told us off because we was running that old mare. We couldn't do anything about it. We couldn't stop her. But that team of horses that we had on that load of wood was the only thing that we had to run our farm with. We had to, and that was our transportation most of the time. Well, I remember one fall, I went out, Dad had gone out after a load of wood. I went out after school to help him. When I got out there, why, I found him in the house on the bed. He had fell, he'd got up in the tree to hook the chain from the wagon and to pull the tree over, and had slipped, fell and run a big sliver in his arm. And we couldn't even bring the wagon home. We had to. I put him on the saddle horse and I rode one of the work horses back. I had to bring him back to the doctor, get that sliver out.
I feel honored at this time to take this position to say a few words about our sweet sister Arnetta. We had quite a few sisters. She's one of the choice ones. In fact, they're all choice, and I couldn't pick the choicest one. She had some fine characteristics about her that I admire very much. We come from two of the popular families in Rockville. Rockville was made of mostly Demilles and HIRSCHIs. And that's what we are, a mixture of Demilles and HIRSCHIs. There's 4 other couples the same as this, so we're not the only ones with that mixture. But there's quite a difference in these two families. The Demilleses, they was great to go hunting treasures and looking for gold mines and never did find them. The HIRSCHIs, they wouldn't waste time to do that. They'd go clean ditch for $2 a day, and next day they'd have the $2, and the next day maybe they'd earn 2 more, and then they'd have $4, and they always had some. Arnetta took from that side of the family. She's a natural manager, and you might even call her stingy, tight. I used to think that was a terrible thing to say about anybody, but in my older age, I admire those kind of people. Those kind of people can help themselves while they help somebody else. For some people that just never make anything and can't keep it, they can't help themselves or anybody else. So she was a good manager, and always is, and always has been. She's a wit. She was always made a lot of fun around home, and a lot of the times be talking fast and get her own self in trouble, saying the wrong thing, laughing and having a lot of fun. But she was well trained with as hard work goes, as all the rest. They were workers. We didn't know anything else, only work. We had hard times. A lot of times we wouldn't have anything but just what we raised. We'd have meat and bread and milk and them kind of things, and eggs. But we didn't have all the little goodies you buy out of the store, cookies and homemade or boughten pies and all those kind of things. We just had the good old stable foods that we raised, as that or starve. But we had plenty of them. Dad was a good provider with those kind of things. He always had cattle and sheep, hogs, and of course horses. He was a professional horseman. He broke lots of horses for people, and he was an awful good teamster. And he'd take the kids. We'd go eastern on wagons. Of course, we didn't know about cars then, didn't know there was such a thing. And so we lived pretty good as poor people live, and probably healthier than we are now. But I'm just proud that Arnetta has got this much good old stuff in her. And I've noticed her family she's done well by them. I think they're well trained and educated. And she's had a hard life too. She never had a silver spoon in her mouth like any of the rest of us. We've all had it hard. It's been hard for us. We wasn't as educated as we'd like to have been. So we can all be proud of Arnetta.
Well, the main thing that I can remember about Arnetta is how good she was to Mom and Dad. She was just really great. She just worshipped him. In fact, even after she got married, she didn't even want to leave him. And I think that shows how good of a girl she was. And then the other thing that I remember about her that was so great is she was so good to me when I was a girl. She made all of my school clothes, and they were really cute. And she just took a lot of pride, you know, in helping me to look good like the other girls, because Mama was older and she didn't have very good health, and so things were a little harder for me that way than for my girlfriends, because their mothers were young and their mothers was active, and so that's why I thought so much of Arnetta, was because she was good to me that way and kind of took the place of what my mother would have done. And me and her, we used to mess around a lot together. We'd walk at night down the highway. And I remember this one night we was walking, and it was real dark, and I think it was cloudy, but anyway, we were walking down the highway, and a man grabbed us, just pitch dark. Boy, we was just scared nearly to death. And I got mad at him, and I told him, I said, you better let us go. I said, boy, or you're gonna get it. And so he let us go, and we started running and run into our neighbor's house, and they walked us home. And we used to go to the dances together, and it was a lot of fun. We used to go over to the Anderson's Junction. They had a open air dance pavilion there. And it was a lot of fun. And then we'd go down to Santa Rosa in Santa Clara. They used to have the open air dances down there. And oh, we just done a lot of things like that together. And too, Arnetta was really great when I was taking care of Mother. Why, she was always so good to, if she thought I was getting a little bit tired, why, she'd come and get Mama and take care of her. And she was just the greatest person. And I think she still is. And I can't remember just how old I was at the time, probably about 15. But anyway, her and Glenn bought this pickup. They bought them together. And our daddy was just learning how to drive, and me and her went downtown in it. When she made the turn, going around the turn, she almost took out a house. Oh, we were so scared, but it was comical. You know how she giggled? It was really funny. But anyway, why, every time her and Glenn would leave that pickup, I'd steal it, and I'd go downtown, and boy, I'll bet I got that going about 10 miles an hour, and I just had the full throttle. And oh, when they'd come back and found out I'd stole that pickup and took it, they was really mad at me, but I'd do it just to tease them mainly, but anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Although I'm 8 years older than Arnetta, I was always better looking than she, and she resented that quite a bit. But one thing about Arnetta, she had a dedicated love to our mother. No one had ever treated Mother like she did her. After she moved to Cedar City, Mother's later years, Arnetta took care of her. She stayed at Darlene's in Canaryville for quite a while, and then she'd end up to Arnetta's. And Arnetta loved her with all her heart. And Arnetta was a hard worker, good worker. She's an immaculate housekeeper. Like all of our other sisters, I'm not bragging, but we was hard workers. And we did all the housework for Mother. Dad babied our mother. And he'd make us get up early in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock. And he'd have the potatoes in the pot cooking. And we'd mash the potatoes, and one of us would make the gravies. Like our brother Raymond, he likes all our gravies. The sisters make. And how she found her husband was out to Snow Canyon.
took Rita in the field to learn her how to rake hay so she could help us when we got in a pinch. And I walked alongside of her, and she was sitting up on the seat on the rake. And she couldn't do nothing. So I just stopped the horse and picked her up and put her up on the top of her backwards. So she could look at me, right, to see what I was doing. So that went on about a half a day. And, her watching me, but I don't know, she must have had her eyes closed or something. It didn't do much good. And I remember one day I went in the house with a chew tobacco in my, it was sticking out a little bit. And Grandma says, "What you got, that damn chicken shit in your mouth?" So she grabbed the broom. She sure beating you over the head with it. And when the wind blowing style come around, why LEOLA wanted her hair cut the worst kind. So I told her I wasn't too busy. I'd do it this afternoon. So I had the lariat and I tied her up to a tree. That's the only way she'd hold still. And while she was screaming and bawling and cussing. And Brother Roosh, Fern's dad, come along. So he come in and wanted to know what was going on. But he says, "Don't you think it'd look a lot nicer if you turned her loose?" So I said, "Yeah, I guess so." So I turned her loose. She had a pretty good haircut. And what other? Dad used to make some root beer, and most of the time he'd make it out of grapes. And he'd go out and test it every once in a while, see if it was matured. And he'd come back and get the milk buckets, and he'd go up and sure jerk the cows and singing. And one day, or one evening, he sipped her too many times. So he got sick and he went in and went to bed. So I followed him in and I told him he was quite a looker for, he was teacher in the Sunday school there. I said, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself." Well, he says, "Don't say anything to Mother about it." I told him I wouldn't. And there was one, I believe it was Peach Day. Had a big doings down there on the square there by the where Uncle Jim used to live. At Mother's
sister's husband. And there's a lot. Some of them brought some calves in and was riding. And that one, Sanders, Grant, I believe it was Grant Sanders. He was one that got on a pony with me. And he wanted to get in the saddle, and I told him, okay, it didn't make any difference to me. So I got behind and got wrapped the strings on the back of the saddle around my hand. We went a little ways and it threw him off. And I still stayed on. And I had an old, my dad's gray workhorse up there. A lot of them said he couldn't be rode, so I put a saddle on him. He whipped around there and then he broke around and jumped over that flat hay wagon. And he run out onto the street and hit that cement in front of the store and fell. And that was that. When Owen was in the Army, he wrote us, and he says, the first thing I'm going to do when I get out of the Army, he says, I'm coming up and visit you, guy. But, bless his heart, he's never got home yet. And I wish some of you guys that come up once in a while, they don't take very much to come up. You see us, we don't amount to much, but we like to